Rocking Chair Session. With Elisa Di Battista and Maria Teresa Barber. Hello everyone.
Hi and welcome to Rocking Chair Sessions Volume 25 with artist Salvador.
25.
Can you believe it?
Wow, that's like an anniversary.
Pronounce your last name
almost.
for me, Salvador, so I don't massacre it, because I already massacred another one.
Zarate.
Zarate.
Because it has like a thing on,
has
on
a
the
Z.
Yeah, when in Spanish it's Zarate.
Zarate.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, do you pronounce the Z, do you not? It's like English or Spanish, whoever's saying it, then it changes.
Right.
Zarate.
Yes.
Zarate.
Salvador
Yeah.
Zarate.
Zarate.
Where does that last name come from?
Spain, I think. Yeah, Spain. But my dad's Mexican, so it's,
Cool.
yeah.
So you're a mix.
I'm a mix, Cuban, Mexican.
Cuban Mexican.
Yep.
And when you grew up, did you feel having like the difficulty to be one versus the other? Was it just like your household? You were a blend and you were okay with that?
No, you know what's funny is that, all of my mom's side of the family is pretty much here in Miami for the most part, like the extended family. And so obviously growing up with my grandparents and everything, you get used to the Cuban food and all that and fine. But when I was younger, like from about 7 to around 11, I would go every summer to Mexico. And it'd be awesome because I would live with my grandparents over there and I'd see all my cousins and I'd come back speaking with like the biggest Mexican accent and everybody was like, wow. And it would be like 2.5 months. So I would relate to both. I really loved it because it was kind of like cool to see both sides. Yeah.
And I feel that's so wonderful when you have like the summer, you just have a place to go and to kind of like this alternative world, right? It's kind of like everything is so different and you're just part of both worlds in a way.
Yep. No, and where my dad's side of the family is from is Chihuahua, so it's like north of Mexico. It's kind of close. It's on the border with Texas, and it's back then anyway, like in the early '90s when I would go, it was just a very small town. Now it's like any other city, but it was just funny to see because you're like go to the movie theater and wow, that movie's coming out now. That movie came out a year ago. You know what I mean? That kind of thing, and it was just nice, kind of slower and very friendly city. You could walk anywhere. It was cool. So I liked it a lot. And the food, it was nice. I always had fun.
And then,
but you were born in Miami,
yes,
right?
I was born in Miami.
So you're one of the few, like probably
I think
5 right now or something that actually artists that are born in Miami because so many artists move here at some point in their lives, right?
Yeah, well, my grandparents, so they lived in Cuba, and I think like in the late 60s, they said, okay, we gotta go, and they went to Spain. They took obviously my mom, my 2 uncles, and they lived in Spain for a couple of years, and then came to the States and ended up in Miami, and that's pretty much, my mom went to med school in Mexico, so that's where she met my dad, and then came here, and I was born here,
So your mom is a doctor?
Yeah.
And your dad?
Yeah.
Both doctors?
Both, yeah.
Wow! What kind of doctors are they?
My dad is a surgeon and an OBGYN, and my mom is a psychiatrist.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Did you tell me that at some point? Maybe.
Maybe
I didn't know I never did. And so my question is the following. Who in your family, either side, Salvador, is artistically inclined?
You know what's funny is like all of them. Pretty much, yeah. Well, in their own little way, right? It was kind of really bizarre, but none of them pursued any kind of artistic career. It was just more of something they did on the side. Like my grandmother, she has a whole book about poems about everybody in the family, and they're beautiful Spanish, poems, and they're amazing. And she every now and then she'll pull it out and read it, and it's like, okay, this one is Salvi because they call me Salvi in my family, right? So like this one's Salvi at age 8, oh he's da 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 or whoever, and it was incredible. So I wanted to print it one day just to give it to her, make a nice book, and so that's my grandmother. My mom, she also would help me out. I remember when I was a kid, she'd help me out with projects and stuff like, oh, and you gotta draw this and any kind of, science project or thing. And then I have my uncle on my dad's side. He can pretty much do anything, like sculpt, make things out of ceramics, clay, paint, everything. And I never really knew my dad. I knew my dad was artistic, but one day I saw him painting this Picasso replica, and I was just like, wait, what? Hold on, what? I had no idea. And he was just there, and he kind of just introduced me on how to, mix certain colors and work with acrylics. That's how I started. And
what age was that?
I think that was like around 15. is when I kind of 14 is when I saw him, and I knew he always loved to draw. I mean, whenever he'd have to explain something, like I remember being a kid, and we had a dock, and it kind of got banged up, and it was old, because we lived like on the canal. And we're there trying to buy the stuff. I must have been like, I don't know, 8 years old, but I remember this because he did a quick sketch of what he wanted the dock to look like. He's like, okay, I want to have these pillars, and I need this amount of wood, and I need that. So he's explaining to the lady, and he did like a really quick sketch, and the lady, I remember she was like, like, wow. Like,
that's a beautiful sketch.
Like, yeah, okay. And even with like a little light on the thing and this, and like the whole thing. So he always, and I'll catch him sometimes. We'll be playing like dominoes or something. He'll just like do a quick sketch of somebody there. But so I think it was always part of the genes, but nobody ever really like pursued it as a career.
And for you, it was clear right away, like in high school already, that you would want to go to art school and you want to pursue this, or how did this?
Not really. No, not really. It was kind of, when I was young, I always would draw, and I always would sketch and doodle, and I would get comic books, and I would get, The Simpsons, right? I'd have like a Simpsons thing, and I would then try to draw Bart and and my friends in class would be like, oh, can you do one for me? And I was just there like, sketching and doodling. And then as I got a little older, but and I remember comic books, I used to love to try to copy the scenes because there'd be beautiful perspectives, and the gestures that these comic books had were great. So I remember being around 9 and 10 when I would collect all these comic books, and I even had a book on perspective, and it was something that I'll never forget because I remember learning, okay, vanishing points, 1 point, 2 points, and that helped me out later, when I went to college and started to study architecture, because it was something like, oh, okay, I understand how to do this and convey a space, but I never thought about seriously becoming an artist. It was something that I've always loved to do, but I guess as I got older and older, I just became more passionate about it, and it just sort of happened. It wasn't something that I had my mind set on always. Yeah.
So after high school, you immediately went to college for architecture?
Yes.
Where did you go to?
I went to Miami-Dade first.
Miami-Dade, okay.
Yeah, I went to Miami-Dade, and then I graduated there, and then I went to FIU. And I studied architecture but also the arts. I went into a lot of figure drawing classes and painting and art history. I got a minor in art history, so all of those things kind of they're all related in a way, the arts. So I gravitated
Especially
to both.
Architecture and art is kind of like so interconnected also, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then after school, did you work as an architect?
I did. I worked in a bunch of firms, hospitality. So we would do like nightclubs and bars and things like that. A lot of hotels, and it was also while I was going to school, so that was good. And then I took about 2 years. There was like a break, so I always wanted to study abroad. So I had this opportunity, and when I was in school, I don't know if. It was something that the way that FIU taught, it was more about expressiveness and emotion and more about the atmosphere of the actual work and not so much the technical side. So, but that wasn't like, I was kind of going the other way, right? So I would always try to be representational or have this look like what I want it to look like, and they're like, no, don't worry about making it look like that, just how do you feel, listen to music and draw to the music kind of thing. And I'm like in my head thinking like, yeah, but I want to make it look like this, and it's not looking like it. So I heard about this one really good school, and I ended up going over there. I got in, and I was in Florence for a couple of years studying at that school. Yeah, the Angel Academy.
I remember, you talked to me about that, and that must have been like a dream come true, right? It's like
from living in Miami to moving to Europe, and then in a place like Italy where all the great masters learn how to paint and the beauty of art. Like, how was that transformative for you?
It was like life changing in a way. Not to sound like cliche or anything, but it really was, because first of all, I'm by myself, and I remember when I got there, my debit card didn't work because I forgot to call my bank. So I was like, oh my God. I'm already a starving artist. Like, I have like €5 to my name. What am I gonna eat?
You have to start selling your work right now.
So I was just panicking for a day, but no, it was great. The whole thing about being away from family, friends, you really are like, realize what's important. You kind of like, damn, I miss my mom, I miss my dad, I miss my friends, and you start to kind of reflect a lot. You have a lot more time to you're out of your element. So it was great in that sense. You become more appreciative about what you have back home and the things, everything that you take for granted. And being over there, you're just exposed to this whole new world. Yeah, I mean, it's just the history. I mean, I'm thinking, God, Michelangelo walked on this street probably, you know what I mean? Da Vinci sat there, who knows? But in that, and then plus being in this school, which was incredibly challenging, I thought I knew something about painting and drawing, and I get there and it just like my ego went like I got there and I'm like,
our school had that effect.
As a visual, he took his hand and he just squished it down.
I was like under the ground, like below the ground. I was like, oh no, I got this, I've drawn before. And then I go there and I'm just like looking at all the students' work. I'm like, you guys are the shit, you guys are, how do you do that? How did you even? And then you go through the course, and little by little, you just start to build upon, and learn the technique and have this good foundation, which for me was just huge. I felt, wow, this is exactly what I had been looking for, and it was great. I mean, that school to me, was just an amazing experience. I loved every day of it.
Yeah. How was the school structured? Like, was it a degree program, or was it more like a?
Yes, it's like some universities do qualify it as like a master's. Mm-hmm. You could transfer some of those credit points, but in reality, it's just its own private little atelier. It's not anything. It's, I guess you can call it like a master's, for like, fine art.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not something that I could say, oh, I now have a master's. No, it's just in a way like a technical little private atelier.
And what, was it like structured like a master's program where you would have classes? I don't know. Different seminars, or you had like a painting class or drawing class, or how was it structured? Was it more like a workshop, or?
Well, I don't know if I mentioned the name. So the name of the school is the Angel Academy of Art. And the way they're structured, it's based on teaching kind of the methods of the 19th century French ateliers. So what you would have is you'd start from the basics, so pencil. You start from pencil drawings, and you split your day in half. So you'd have half the day would be working from the live model, and then the other half would be working on these projects that you would have, where your instructors would guide you and tell you how to build up a drawing. So you would basically take what you're learning in that project and then apply it to your live drawing class. And then the course gets harder and harder, because you go from pencil to charcoal to then painting in monochrome and then painting in full color.
Oils.
Yeah,
you always paint in oil.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was great because you can see, I mean, there was a fellow student there who started with me, and he had never like picked up a pencil in his life, really. And then you see his work as he was going, and you're like, yeah, everybody can learn it. They drill it into you. So the course for me was just incredible. It was, I mean,
it's kind of like, I imagine that would be like the workshops that maybe were like hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
It was already like that.
Exactly.
When the big artists had their
shop,
their helpers and their
assistants, their apprentices.
Right?
That's exactly how it is. I mean,
wow.
The principal, the director, the guy who started the schools, his name is Michael John Angel, and he studied under a Florentine painter named Pietro Annigoni, and he is kind of one of the last members of this continuous lineage of classically trained painters, realist painters that go back and back. He studied under somebody who studied under that, and it goes back and back and back.
That's so neat.
So yeah, he started the school, and the other professor, the instructor there is Jared Woznicki, and they pretty much built this up in a way. It was Michael John Angel, and he kind of, I don't want to say, he's part of the reason why so many, I feel like, realist painters now, contemporary realist painters now, it's becoming more prevalent, because him and others started these schools, and really at a time when this was something that was like unheard of, you know what I mean? It was very, like, nobody did that. Nobody taught these methods anymore. So.
But there's also something about your paintings that always takes me back to Italy. It's kind of like you have that in you now. It's like Because it's so funny sometimes when like for example, I'm from Austria, but then I studied in San Francisco, and my work always looked European, even if I never was taught in Europe. But with your work, I feel like, I mean, you're American, you have your roots in like different countries, but your work looks so European. I feel like your work looks so Italian, and it's like amazing.
I was Italian in a previous life.
I say Italian, but I feel for those of you that haven't seen Salvador's painting, besides the formal training that you had in Italy, it is, I recognize the subject matter and the style as being traditionalist, so I see it as more just European overall, because it could be Dutch, it could be French, it could be Italian, it could be Spanish, like Velasquez, because you have a lot of like lots of beautiful like chiaroscuro happening in your paintings, and so I see it as just, I put it under the umbrella, it's very European in style and classical, but it's also, I feel it's
also from another time, right? It does feel like, in a way, old.
Yes, it's like you're a time traveler.
You're a time traveler,
from the past, and you've been brought to the present. And I don't know. Yes, so I don't see just the Italian. I do see the European influence. Yeah, like the masters. Like
the masters,
the cheese and the fromage and the grapes. And
Salvador did this beautiful series of fruit and vegetables. And small scale, and it was exhibited at the bakehouse.
8.5 by 12-ish, right?
Yeah, like 8 by 10 for them. Yeah, around there.
And they were just, I don't know, they were just such characters, you know, like the fruit even was like, had like such an aura to it.
Some of them look like photographs to me in how like the
precision of it. Yeah,
precision. In terms of precision, do you feel, having initially studied architecture, that some of that has obviously crossed over?
Of course,
I feel like I see your painting, and then you tell me, what, you're an architect, and I'm like, oh my god, so much sense, because to be an architect, I think you have to be very precise and calculated and clean. How else do you feel it goes from one to the other?
Well, actually, it's funny. This new ideas that I've been having, you know, they blend themselves, right? So, you know, obviously the discipline, you know, and the seriousness that I take to the painting, you know, is also the same when you're at work and, you know, and in the firms that I've worked in. So they go hand in hand, but what I want to do more is, you know, make that connection a little bit more evident. So I want to have, you know, the figures that I have, put them in these spaces that I've kind of designed, you know, bring in a little bit more of interior, bring in a little bit more of the architecture side aspect and training that I've had into my painting. So that's kind of like a new idea that I'm playing with, you know, just to kind of have these spaces that I've pretty much, not in a sense invented, but designed in, you know, working with the figures that I'm painting. So yeah, but they go hand in hand. You know, I feel that the training did help for both. For both. When I was painting, you know, the architecture side helped, and when I was, you know, working also in design, you know, it's something that frees you up. Yeah.
So when you came back from Italy,
that's exactly what I want to say. I'm like, why didn't you stay?
I know we always ask that question, right? Why didn't you stay in Europe?
No, but it's hilarious because people, when I was over there, I would tell them where I was from. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm from Miami, you know, and they're like, oh my God, Miami is beautiful, the beach, the clubs, like, what are you doing over here? You know, like, here's just old buildings and rocks, and like, this is garbage, this is not anything cool. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I came here for the old rocks, for the old buildings, like, this is what I find beautiful. You guys have so much history. And they're like, no, this is not anything. Over there in Miami, the party, this. So it's funny, and then I come back and everybody's like, what the hell are you doing here? Why didn't you stay over there? You know, you should have like never came back. But it was great. So when I came back, you know, my girlfriend and I, well, she's now my wife, we, you know, moved in together, and I found this job with this one firm, and shortly after that,
architecture or?
Yeah, architecture and interior design.
Interior design.
Yeah, and so, you know, then the opportunity to apply for the bakehouse came up because actually a friend of mine, his dad, you know, I think in the mid 90s or early 90s was a resident artist here. So yeah, my friend's mom said, oh, well, you should look into it. You know, they're still around and apply. They have studios. So I did. And it was kind of like once I got established here, I said, okay, I want to make this actually more of a full-time thing, little by little. So I just kind of wanted not just a hobby. I want to dedicate more and more time. So I'd find myself being here, and And it's just once I'm in, in painting, time goes by so fast.
Yeah.
And she'll call me and it's like, babe, it's 1 a.m. What the hell are you? Come home already. And so it's great. I love it. So it's.
And I remember, was it last summer you started to do like portraits, and I was sitting for you as well.
Yeah.
And it's also like that your work is like so time consuming. I mean, even a little sketch of my face, I think I was sitting like, I don't know, 6 hours, 7 hours for that, because you also like working from live models and
correct,
and not just photographs, right?
Yeah. Well, some of that comes from also, in a way, me, I feel like, I'm always trying to get better. So as you progress and you become more comfortable and you know more, and the more you study and the more you do it, then you get better and better. So maybe back then I wasn't that good. So
no, you were great. You were just, you just really were so precise. I feel like, because it was I love the portrait that you made. It was great.
Good, good.
That was, I don't know, last summer or the summer before, because you've been at the Bakehouse for 3 years probably.
Yeah,
almost 3 years now.
Yeah, almost 3 years. Yeah.
Studio one, because it used to be on the second floor.
It used to be on the second. All of us were on the second floor. Yeah.
And your number is now
16.
Studio 16,
first
which is
floor.
First floor downstairs. If you want to come by, look at his work. Because also very interesting, you don't have an online presence, right?
No, now I'm starting to. With
Instagram, right?
With
you started with Instagram.
Yeah, I started. Yeah, it was always. I'm kind of anti-technology, and I'm just sort of trying. I'm always. I don't know. Just my personality. I don't know why, but.
You don't usually respond to emails. I know that.
I do. I mean, if someone will send me, if someone, I'll correspond, but I'm not on top of it as much as I guess I should be. Yeah, I mean, people will send an email to me, and people that I haven't spoken with in a while, and I'll maybe take 2 weeks to get back to them. I'm not, but it's definitely, that's the way the world is now. You need to have that online presence. So, and it's just something that the more people see your work, the better it is for you. So it's something that little by little, I'm definitely starting to do more of. Yeah.
Because I imagine as an architect and interior designer, it would not be difficult for you to build a website, right? You probably work with that every day.
Right.
So it was kind of like it was not that, like for me, for example, I had no idea how to do that. So it was like, this first hurdle to do a website. But for you, it was really like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to have it.
Right.
It was like this.
I guess a part of it came from, I felt that I just didn't have enough of what I felt I wanted to show, to represent my work, because a lot of it is academic, a lot of it, and it's because I still feel that I'm always learning and training in a way, it's something that, if you like to run, right, you run and to stay in shape, right, and you just do it and you do it, and I kind of feel like that's the same way with me when I'm doing a master copy, or I'm doing something that I feel like, okay, this is just for me to stay in shape, right, and keep learning. So that's how I have a lot of work that is like that, but that's mine, that's my own creation. I feel like I want to build up more before I can have that, say, okay, this is me. So that's kind of also what's held me back from being so out there, because people say, it's very classical, but in myself, I feel I want to make myself feel like we're living in today. So I don't want people to say, oh, that looks like that was done in the 16th century kind of thing,
I want you to take us through the journey, because you said when you were younger you used to draw, sketch, and I want to know like what media and stuff you used to do, and then obviously that takes us more into the architecture, whatever you dabbled into the fine arts. I'm talking project and material wise, because I do want to see the progression of your journey, because right now you're like uber realist in the way you paint. So I'm wondering where that might go going forward. I think the term is
hyper-realist.
Hyper-realist?
Well, I hope not. I hope not. I hope not.
Uber.
It's just the word that's on my mind right now. Transportation. So
you're thinking of how Maria's going to get home. You don't want to take her home later.
It's German. You know that. Do you know that Uber is a German word that has been Anglicized?
Anglicized. So so can you, the trajectory, because like you're mentioning now that you feel you're doing these projects, but they're not necessarily, I don't want to say student projects, but they're more, like you say, they're exploratory, you're investigating different techniques and materials, but you want to push that forward into your own, quote unquote, like what you imagine that your artwork is now in 2017.
Yeah, well, the journey, I mean, when I was little, the media was anything I could grab, right? Okay. I mean, it'd be a piece of like rock on the sidewalk, or markers, anything, right? Anything that I really didn't know or realize how to appreciate the different media. It was just kind of like, I found it, I'm using it. And now you just get more of a respect and you get like an intimacy with the medium. You understand what it can do and you learn a little more. And so that's later. But I guess
like elementary school, any projects that stood out to you? Like, I'm in my mind, I'm like, oh, I remember when I was in...
I'm trying to think, in elementary school...
If I hear him talk about comics, I see him work with markers and pen.
Yeah, always, all the time. Right? Yeah.
Because it's I mean, obviously, there's something about the control that you want to have about the medium. That's why you didn't like the classes at FIU. Because like I have a student in my library class. It's also like I gave him a tempera paint to do something abstract, and he was like, I hate this. Give me my markers back. And I see you like you could have been that kid, because you like even with the oil paint, you don't want to make a mess. Like your studio, and compared to my studio, it was like pristine.
That's all my wife does.
No, it's like a museum. Every single piece, like a furniture or the easel,
calculated.
like everything is set up perfectly, and it's pristine. Like
it's
you can come by any given day, and Salvador Studio is
16.
Studio 16.
It's pristine. It's like
thank you for that.
And it's like it's the control you want to have about over the medium, right? It's like something that you don't want to just splatter paint on it,
Well, it's funny because when you said that the classes at FIU, I did like them, but I found that I was going more. I felt like I liked what they were trying to get me to do, and when I was doing them, it was very freeing, right? But something said, okay, I want to have more of like a foundation because I feel sort of lost. In a sense, I feel like I'm just putting stuff on paper, on canvas, on whatever, without really having a firm understanding of what it is.
Formal background. What type of classes did you take without name dropping necessarily, but just like the
you can name drop the teachers that you like.
I just do safety first. You could just say like the classes.
Oh, I took like painting 1, painting 2. I took the intro to figure drawing. There were some a lot of what was the other one? It was like a mixed media one. Photography. All of these classes, but they were all still more based on exploring like yourself, right? Exploring, trying to get you to, in a way, do things that made you uncomfortable, kind of, right? So I would try to, in the figure drawing class, it was, okay, I'm trying to make her look like her, and trying to get the proportions, and the teacher would come and say, no, don't worry about all that. Just, how do you feel? Look at the gesture, go into the lines, just really get into it and create a mood. And in a way, I'm glad that I kind of learned those things. I didn't really, dive into it as much as I could have, but I felt like, okay, I like this. I like this in a way. I just felt like I want to have more of a good foundation, a good base before I get to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like people look at Picasso or other people, Cubists and all these other artists that do things that are this very expressive. But you also look at their earlier work, they were very technically trained.
And they knew how to draw.
Right, exactly.
And they knew how to paint.
And I feel like that's what I want to be. I don't want to go the opposite way. I don't want to do these exploratory things without having a good understanding of what it is.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like you got to learn the rules and then you can break them, sort of thing. And
I feel that.
But I want to definitely bring my work and have it feel that it's more of, my everything that makes me, right? So all of my influences, not just architecture, interiors, all the things, experiences that I've had, and then merge that with my naturalistic way of painting. So that's kind of what I want to do. That's the goal. So have it be something that you could say is contemporary in today's setting. I don't want it to look like it could have been done 500 years ago, you know what I mean? And say, that's because we're living today. So we have to talk about things that are happening today.
We're current.
And obviously have it represent, ourselves, represent me.
I mean, I agree with you, but I also disagree. I have to play devil's advocate. There's a timelessness to your work. I think there's a beauty to it that I'm like, wow, people don't do this anymore. But here you are against the waves of like, be the future, and you're just being yourself and you're painting what you like to paint. So I also appreciate that. Do you understand what I mean, Maria?
Yeah, and I feel like, I feel like there is a new trend, and you were talking about it, that goes back into realism and photorealistic painters, or they call it photorealistic now, which is funny, right? But for example, Gerhard Richter, the German artist, right? Is an artist that goes completely into the abstract and then goes completely into the realistic, right? And then I forgot his name, but there's this Israeli artist that also paints, I think, of photographs, and you can really not, like you said, you didn't know if it's a photo or not. You know, it's like it's so like photorealistic, I guess, or hyperrealistic or uber realistic. It's like there is a new tradition, a new trend that is now again appreciating.
Correct. The movement.
And the precision, and the fact that now everyone thinks it's a photograph, and then we're like, because hundreds of years ago you wouldn't have thought it was a photograph, that would have not been crossed your mind, and now it's like, oh, it's not a photograph, it's a drawing or it's a painting, and it's like,
that's kind of it's kind of funny, because that's sort of not what I would want, because I had my teacher when I was in school, he said, he broke down and he showed all the different forms of representational painting. There's realism, imaginary realism, there's hyper-realism, there's this. And he said, don't try to make your work look like a photo, because that's what photography is for. You know what I mean? So you should, if you're gonna try to make it look like a photo, then just take a photo. It should be more about the expressiveness. It should be more about, paint application. From far away, if it looks realistic, that's one thing, but I never
don't
really
make it look like a photo.
Right, I never want my work to look like a photo. I think people say it looks, because they just are thinking it looks realistic, naturalistic.
And then you get close, but you see the strokes.
Right, so it's not, I don't really, that's not the goal, because there you're more just, I think, playing up the fact that you're able to produce something to that level of detail, but I think what's more important is what you're saying, really, in a way. You know what I mean? That it shouldn't be about the fact that you can take it to that level and make it so real that it looks like a photo. It shouldn't be. It should be more like, okay, from far away, like Impressionism, right? From far, certain painters, you look far away, it's, wow, I see it, it's a this, it's a that, and then you get close and you're like, wow, the way he layered the paint and, actually modeled something with the brushstrokes, and it's beautiful too, that whole, the textures and all those other things that go into it.
So in these 3 years that you've been in the bakehouse now, can you talk a little bit about the residency, how it affected your work, or actually also like how it affected you as an artist, as an artist, full-time artist, or in a way like the professional development, or how did you experience having a studio here?
Well, it took it to definitely made it more serious, right? Because it's not like it's free. So you're thinking, okay, I'm paying, so I have to be here, I have to work, I have to produce, So there's that element to it that you're like, okay, I'm not just gonna have this space to play around. I'm gonna come in here, this has to be serious. So you wanna obviously do as much as you can and get your work out there. So in that sense, it made me a lot more responsible and how I managed my time, and said, okay, I need to do this, and I have this amount of time to do it in.
You have to practice.
Yeah.
It's not just like project full time. It's your own personal.
Exactly. So that whole thing also, because when you're in school, there's also that whole, you're learning, you're a little bit more just loose about it. You're not, but then when you come into a situation where it's, okay, now it's for real, I have to crank out a ton of work because I'm actually this, and you have that all going on. So in that sense, that helped out a lot, having this space, and just the fact that I'm able to have a space that I can say, okay, I focus here and pretty much can experiment, and it's a great space. So it allows you that opportunity to create. So that's, in these 3 years, I felt like my production has gone up, obviously. If I would have been at home, I have nowhere. You're not, you need somewhere where you can focus.
You regiment yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And I remember you've been working on commissions as well, right?
Yeah.
Was it last summer? Or I remember that, and have you shown your work also? I mean, I know you had shows at the Bakehouse.
Yeah.
Have you shown in other places too already, or is that something you want to do?
There've been a few. Not really. I wouldn't say that. I mean, there've been some competitions that I've entered where my work has been shown. There's been, you know, some like group shows that I had done in the past, but solo shows, no. So I want to focus and have a good body, some series that I can take
for a solo show.
Right, for a solo show. That's kind of what I'm aiming for now.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Did you have studio visits yet with the curators that come through the Bakehouse?
No, I missed this last one. I was out of town for the one before, and this past one that just happened now in September, I missed. I think the day I was gonna sign up, I think I got the email that they were already booked. So I'm gonna shoot for now this month.
This month?
Yeah, I really want one. Yeah, because everybody that I've spoken to has said that they've been great.
Yeah. So just for our listeners, we have this new program at the Bakehouse where curators are invited to come by, and all the artists here can sign up for studio visits and kind of get started into this, like thinking about solo shows or group exhibitions, and you know, get feedback from curators about how far along they are in the process of, you know, getting to their goals. And it's been a really, well, like I had one studio visit so far, and it's been really productive. Like I felt like that's a really great new program for us, you know, because it's really like catering towards like a professional development, like you know, how do you make those connections with galleries, or how do you get actually into shows? And I
wanted to ask you, Salvador, I have seen your drawings besides your paintings. Which one do you feel artistically you're more, I guess, personally inclined to do? Would you rather do like the figure drawing in live, like person, like observing the individual and doing like these beautiful charcoal and pencil drawings you do, or would you prefer, do you also do your still life from life? Your paintings from life? So everything's from life. Which do you feel you're more attracted to, like the individual, like the figurative, or the actual, like the figures, like the fruits and the rest?
No, both the same. They each kind of, you learn different things when you do them, and they each have their own character. You know, the same thing with landscapes. I also love to do landscapes, and you know, they're all these different genres that, in a way, they all have the same principles, right? When it comes to, like, you know, the design and the composition and the proportion and all of these things that that come into play. So I like all of them the same, and it's really, I can't really choose which one I would prefer to do. They all sort of are one and the same for me, in a way. I don't really rank them, which one I like to do more. Obviously, painting and drawing from life, it's a little bit trickier because, you know, you have to hire a model and it can be a little bit more expensive. So sometimes if they're, you know, can't have a model pose for so long, then, you know, there'll be a photo and I can work from that just to tweak and get more of the final details and those things. But yeah, I like them all the same.
There's actually the new exhibition at the Paris Art Museum, Miami, PAM, is organized, the permanent collection is organized through the 5 categories of painting.
Really?
And it's like a hierarchy, right? So it was like the historic paintings and then the everyday. Life, and then of course portraiture and landscapes, and there is a 5th one. I think
it was just the last one was maybe either still life or just little.
Still life.
Maybe it was still life was the last one.
I mean, there are tons, but they organized the whole show.
I mean, historically it was like that.
And there was like a hierarchy in them, right? There was like, this is the most expensive one, and then that, and so. But there was another thing that I wanted to mention, because we were talking about bringing more of the architectural elements into your work, and there is this artist Toba Kiduri who had a solo exhibition in the PAM, and she's painting now. She's painting in oil, also like realistic and like with a lot of detail. Now she's painting her hands for the first time, and before that it was always architectural elements on large, very, very large paper that she covered in wax and then painted in oil. And I just thought of her, Toba Kiduri.
I remember.
I think it would be cool. It would be a great inspiration for you, into this more the architectural elements.
And I wanted to ask you to this. Sorry, the shirt you're wearing. What artist did you look at or aspire to, or just get inspiration from, in terms of like the classics? Like you're wearing a shirt by.
Well, I'm wearing Rembrandt. It's a shirt that I got recently. My wife and I, we went to Belgium and Holland, and so I went to Rembrandt's house, and it was, I felt like this kind of wave of sort of like inspiration. Like, oh my God, he lived here. He mixed his paints. He had his assistants mix paints here, and he did his etchings there, and it's really cool because they show you, they have the room still kind of, and an old press, and they show you here mixing the paints and everything, and you see his collection of artifacts that he had, from casts and all these objects that he collected. So I don't know, that kind of was a really awesome experience. We went to a couple people's houses. We're going to just house hopping. We went to Rembrandt's house. We went to Rubens's house. In Antwerp. So it was just a really cool experience. And he's one of my all-time greats, favorite artists, Rembrandt. I just, his technical ability and what he would do with the brush and, the paintings and his use of light and everything. It was just, for me, one of the best. And so that was really cool. So that's why I love this shirt.
He was so great at self-portraiture, and you had this one self-portrait that we used at the preview for the session that you, do you feel that you could do that, like progressively continue, like just throughout your life, kind of like Rubens did? And kind of like, obviously he did as well, the self-portraiture, to kind of sort of take us through the journey of your life.
Yeah, well, Rembrandt was known. He did, I think, I don't know how many he did, but he did like hundreds of, he did it throughout his whole life. Yeah, he was doing so many self-portraits, and they're a great way, and you can see sort of his, not only just obviously him aging, but his technique also, how it just changed, and his application of paint and everything. So that's always amazing. Yeah.
That's a request. Please do that.
Yeah. I'm gonna start doing self-portrait. One a year. I'm gonna try. That's my goal. One a year, and then look back, however many years from now, and see. So.
Are you using a mirror for the self-portraits?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So really old school.
Yeah. And it's funny, you use it and you see yourself, and then it's a nice kind of intuitive. You get kind of like connected with yourself, and you're like, oh wow, really?
Yeah.
My eyebrow does that, or like, you know what I mean? You kind of look really close at your features, and it's nice just to.
Even just sitting for you as a model was kind of like a therapy session for me. It was really interesting because you're supposed to be like kind of still, and you're really thrown back to yourself. I imagine something is also going on in you, because you are also confronted with yourself.
Right. Well, and it's also practical, too, because you always have your face, right? It's like,
you just need a mirror.
You need a mirror, and then you can pretty much draw. So it's good in that sense too. You don't have to pay a model, but it's always, and I've posed before, for other people. So, and it's definitely a meditative thing. You're just sitting there, and that's another element too to the paintings that I'm trying to convey. That I guess comes. It's a lot of practice, but the psychological aspect. So another one of my favorite painters is Jerry Coe, and he did like a whole series where he went to a mental hospital or an insane asylum, I don't remember, and he just did portraits of people there. And it's incredible because you can really see the disease that person had based on the portrait. Someone had like schizophrenia, or someone had like this, or someone was like a what do you call it, like a kleptomaniac or something. And
he's able to capture those things.
He'd capture that. He'd capture that beautifully. Someone was had a manic depressive look, and so that element too is important. And it's the psychological aspect. It's not just making something look like what you see it. It's taking it to that other level, right? Of expression that is important. So you see a work and like, okay, it's elevating it, right?
What is your, what is your goal for? I just did this creative capital workshop last year, right? So you have to have like a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and then you have to write what's supposed to be on your tombstone.
Wow.
Oh, that is so depressing.
That's kind of creepy.
They want you to
it's actually very liberating. But so I'm not going to ask about the tombstone, but actually I'm going to ask about your tombstone. What would you want to be written on your tombstone? Like, what's your life goal with this?
Well, I can't right now. I don't know. I have no idea. that it would say from 1983 to like 2100. It would be a super long. No, I don't know. I have no idea what I would say. I remember I was in Père Lachaise, the cemetery in Paris, and you just see, and there were so many great people that were buried there, and you see their tombstones, and they, their friends would always say something about them. So I wouldn't want it to be something that I would say. You know what I mean? Maybe I would want people to say about me. Yeah, a friend to say about me, like he was, he owed me money and he never paid. Or I don't know, something that, whatever. Something nice,
What is written on Rembrandt's tombstone?
I've never
no idea. I don't know.
You haven't visited the grave, only the houses, right?
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's really how creative capital works. They're kind of trying to, what's your goal, for this year?
Yeah.
What's your goal for like art? Not just artistically, but whole life.
That's
it's like, do you want to kind of like obviously family, get married, or have children, or you want to have a solo show, you want to do this, you want to do that. So.
Well, you've definitely said some of those things today, Salvador. My question is, have you ever done sculpture, like busts?
No, and I would love to. And I would really love to. I mean, there was a school.
I could see that being your next.
Really?
I mean, you're so good in. I don't want to say the word producing, but in almost creating what looks to be three-dimensional forms within your 2D paintings, that I'm like, well, I could see you doing these like busts, not necessarily marble, because God knows we can't do those as well anymore, but like clay and then firing that. I could see that being a potential somewhere.
I would love to. Yeah, there were opportunities when I was living in Florence. There were a lot of schools that they offered sculpture, and there was this one. Actually, he was an American guy, and he moved over there, and he ended up staying over there. And I went to some of his lectures, and he did a series of lectures talking about sculpture, its history, but essentially pretty much from Donatello to the present day. And it was incredible. It just blew my mind. The way he explained it, the way you see how these artists tackled the medium, and it was great. So I fell in love with sculpture. I have an appreciation for it, and to me, I think it's a beautiful way of representing, form. And
I don't want you to become a sculptor necessarily, but I could see it informing your work.
No, it helps too. I mean, the more you understand, for sure. I would love to do a sculpture of a head, right? Because it would. I mean, it would increase your knowledge of anatomy and everything, because you're making it. You're just three-dimensional, and you have to really know. Because in painting or drawing, you have to know it also, but it's not as, I think, deep understanding when you physically do it with your hands and actually mold it. Yeah. So I would love to.
Okay, Maria's shutting me up. Okay, last question. God, I kind of think the sculpture one was pretty huge for me. I was very curious about that.
You want to keep talking about that one?
Yes, because I'm like, okay, you're married now, so you have more responsibilities and you're working artist. Would you try to go abroad for this, or would you try to find locally if you could hopefully learn that?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to travel or locally or anyway. I mean, there are a couple places. I mean, nowadays there's a lot of workshops, so you could go somewhere and people, some famous sculptor would come and you can learn a lot, and they'd introduce you to it. But any way that it would happen, I would love it, because I would love to learn. But I think one thing at a time. I feel like I'm still learning my craft right now, and there's, every time, the further you get into something, the more you're just, there's more to learn and more to learn and more to learn.
Yeah.
So you're always going to evolve, but I would love to try it.
You don't say no. That's a great answer, because I mean, I definitely see you pursuing that, not professionally, like, oh, I'm going to become a sculptor now, but I could see it somehow being, once you get stuck or you need a break from what you're doing, I could see that as an outside, because you do say you want to go into the more design spaces, architectural spaces within your now formal paintings and bring that into it. And I think that's going to be another element. Plus, you also mentioned the artists that you admire that brought in the psychological, the actual psyche. So that's also another layer that you're looking to bring into your work. So I see that you have your hands full.
Yeah, and also like bringing the architecture into.
Oh, that's gonna transform it for sure.
And the contemporary more into the whole, like it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen paintings where these artists, what they did was they took bits and pieces from, say, famous, a church here and another church there, and they create their own church. Yeah. And it's a church that doesn't even exist, and and it's so convincing and it's beautiful, and I'm not gonna say I want to do a church, but a space that is maybe a bit of this and that, and merge it and make your own space, and have, and I'm not a 100% devout classicist, right? I also respect and appreciate, abstract paintings and expressionist paintings, because that to me is also beautiful. So I'm glad that I appreciate that as well, because I try to take from both, you know, and apply all of those things into my work. That's the goal. Is really what I want to do.
That's really good. Yeah. Okay, last question just came to mind. Going back, just it comes out like that. In terms of architecture, what architecture were you most attracted to? Because seeing your paintings, I'm curious. Like modern or more like classical, like colonial, etc.
No, I'm more modern. Yeah, I'm more modern, and mid-century is more of the style that I like. You know, I like obviously Frank Lloyd Wright. You know, people that you know, Alvar Aalto, people that also took into consideration the surroundings where their structures were going to go. That was very important to me when I was studying, because I gravitated towards them, because they didn't just want to say, you know, they didn't have like their ego. They didn't say like, I'm going to put what I'm known for and, you know, plop it on this place where it has no relation to anything and no context, and it's just my signature on this piece of land. No, it's more, okay, what do we have?
De Moran work like that, right?
Yeah, they actually get together with local artists. Yeah, exactly. They get together and they kind of pick up a little bit of the vibe of the city and try to like blend and have like a harmony. So it's not. I love them. They're two of my favorites. And so people that kind of take into appreciation the surroundings, so that their buildings blend with their environment. That's important to me. I'm kind of also like I'm very like environmentally conscious. So I try to look at that. I don't want to. Yeah.
I could see you bringing that into your work. Yeah, crossing that over. Okay, Maria, your turn.
All right. So before Elisa
destroys the mic,
destroys our recording devices here,
with the shoes,
we are at the very last question. You've been sitting on a magical rocking chair.
I know. I feel like I'm like my grandmother's house. Yeah. When I was a kid, I'm very comforting.
And the chair grants you 3 wishes. You can wish for anything.
Okay.
What are those?
I have to say them out loud, or they?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they won't come
Otherwise,
true.
they won't come true.
I don't say them out loud.
It's a different rule here.
Oh, I have to say them out loud.
You have to say them out loud in order for them to come true.
Wow. Okay.
But only 3.
Only 3.
3 wishes.
Yes.
Only 3.
Only 3. Okay. Well, can I wish for more wishes? No, you can't do that.
You're the third person to
coming up lately, right? Yeah.
No, I guess. Well, one is to just be healthy. I think that's obviously you always want to never have anything. That's number 1, I guess. And number 2, I guess find a way in which I can have my work, be content with what I'm doing as much as possible, get it to as many people as possible so they can get exposed as much. And I guess that's number 2. And number 3, be a good husband. So now my that's for my wife. She's probably listening. It's her birthday, so I gotta.
It's her birthday today.
Tomorrow.
Right?
Tomorrow. So I gotta throw that in there. So she.
Happy birthday, Carl!
No.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Can't make it all about me.
No, that's good.
Very good.
Very good.
Well, thank you so much, Salvador.
Right. I know, we appreciate it greatly, and we should be having, I think, Alex Nunez next week.
Alex Nunez is going to be next, the next rocking chair session.
Probably the 26th. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening, guys.
Yeah, let me thank you guys for having me, and it was great. I loved it. Thank you. Yeah,
thank you
so much.
So fast.
It was a lot of fun. I loved it.
Alrighty, guys. Bye. Thanks for checking in again. Bye-bye.